There's so many of us who are going through a spiritual wasteland right now. I want to just spend a few moments looking at what the scriptures have to tell us on how to navigate the wilderness successfully. How do you take a season of disorientation and move from things that you knew to the unknown and navigate that wilderness successfully? The Bible has an awful lot to say about the purpose of the wilderness in the lives of God's people, because it's always in the wilderness when God brings people to their knees in order for the people to come to a profound sense of their need for God. This is spiritual formation and faith development at its very, very best. But it is some of the most trying, some of the most difficult, gut-wrenching, tear-inducing times that we could possibly ever endure. So we turn to the book of Exodus. And the people of Israel had been slaves in Egypt for over 400 years. Even though it was very difficult, it was all they knew. And they are leaving that country, and they are going out in the wilderness. And Pharaoh begins to pursue them, and they get up against the Red Sea, and they feel like they're just toast. Before they even get to the wilderness, things are already upside down. They're scared out of their minds, and they ask a very crucial question that you yourself may be asking these days. What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? What have you done to us by bringing us here? This is not how we saw this going. We trusted you. We trusted the leader to take us to a better place, and things have only seemed to get worse. This can't be the right way to go. We should have stayed back where we were. There is instant regret for leaving. Maybe you left church to find new expressions of church, like we talked about on this channel, like home church, and you get into something new, and as exciting as that is, there are just certain components of it that are new and difficult, that have to be navigated, and you're just wondering, like, did we do the right thing? Are our kids going to be okay without youth group? What's going to happen to our biblical formation without a good sermon from the preacher every week, right? Maybe it's such a phenomenal preacher, you're asking these kinds of questions. I doubt anyone I ever preached for would ever ask a question like that, but did we do the right thing by coming all the way out here? We thought this was the search for something better, but at first it feels like maybe something worse is going on, because we're having to let go of all the things that entangled us in order to find the new freedom. But the message that nobody tells you is that to go from A to B is not A to B, it's A to C, and the B is the wilderness. You don't just go from Egypt to the promised land, you got to go through the wilderness. You got to have some God encounters along the way to really get yourself ready. I was talking to a preacher just yesterday, and he said that he prayed and prayed for growth in his church, and God didn't give it to him for 7 years. And he just said, God just kept telling me, no, you're not ready for this. You're not ready for this. He said, finally, in this last year, our church has doubled. This traditional church, traditional brick and mortar, they're doing wonderful work in the community. They're serious about discipleship, all for him. One of their biggest fans, cheer them on. You know, as much as I am about home church, I'm not against a traditional church. I think there's wonderful things happening there. But what happens when you thought you were going to find joy, but instead you find trouble? You thought if we just leave Egypt, we'll be happier over here. But what you find is the wilderness, where you find your own insufficiency. It's only when we come face to face with our own insufficiency that we come face to face with God. And here's Moses' answer in the very next verse, Exodus 14:13. He says, do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance that the Lord will bring you today. If you find yourself in the wilderness, you need to know that God is there with you, and that God is fighting for you. You're going to need to stand firm and know that God will deliver you. This is where faith is formed, not when we have it all together, but when we don't, not when we have all the answers, but when we don't, not when we can provide all the solutions on our own, but it's when we can't, that God will deliver, and we will see the fact that it was Him who got us through that, and our faith will be formed because we'll be able to trust Him more, deeper, richer in our lives because we were insufficient. You can't part the Red Sea. You can't get away from Pharaoh on your own. You can't bring the cloud to separate Pharaoh from you and blow back the water. You can't do any of it. Without God, you're toast. You have to come to that point to understand that without God, you're toast. But God didn't bring you all the way out here to watch you die in the wilderness. So stand firm, and He says, you will see it. Watch and see it. Call out to him, pray to him, ask him, beg him, and you will see it. What will you see? His deliverance, his provision. We have seen this over and over in home church where we were not able to provide the solutions. We didn't have the funds. We didn't have the personnel. Those are all the old solutions that we're used to. If you have the funds, you have the right amount of people, and you can take care of most of the things you need to take care of. But when you kind of scale that down, often we feel very insufficient. And it's in that insufficiency that we're able to take those things to God, things that maybe in the past we would have not thought to take to God, and ask him for his provision, and then watch him bring about the resources and the solutions. And if that's not enough, the very next verse after that, like 2 verses later in 14:15, here's what God says. Not just what Moses says, God says, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on." God, there's a whole sea over there. How are we going to move on? Just start walking. I'll start parting. And this is how it works. You start walking and he starts parting. Tell him to move on. Don't regret that you left. Don't wish you were back there. Carry on. Keep walking. Move on. And watch God deliver as you walk the walk. Now, the second is also a people to leader question. Just like the first, why did you bring us out here to die? Here's the second. Exodus 15:23 and 24. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water because it was bitter. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" There's a question underneath this question. The question is, will we have what we need to have to make it? We can't make it without water. The water here is insufficient, and we can't get water on our own. Will we have what we need to make it? This is a faith formation question that you can only encounter in the seasons of insufficiency, the seasons of the wilderness. In the wilderness, all the sufficiency, all the resources are stripped away, and it is brought down to you and the Lord and the people in the Lord, and you cannot provide solutions without his help. This is where you learn to trust him. It's in this moment that you know we don't have what we need and we can't supply what we need, and only he can. And so we're going to cry out to him and ask him for his help. And when he brings the help and he brings out the water, we're able to drink, and it's not bitter this time. We learn to trust him. The wilderness is the classroom for faith formation. It's where you learn to trust him. It's really hard to learn trust in God in Egypt, and it's really hard to learn trust in God in the promised land, but it's in the location of insufficiency and utter difficulty, the wilderness, that we learn to trust God. Faith formation. And once we learn to trust God enough in the wilderness, he gives us the promised land. But it's a process to get there. Now, the third question is from leader to people. To get away from just the people asking the leader question, now the leader's going to ask the people a question. And this is in Exodus 16:6-8. So Moses and Aaron said to all the Israelites, "In the evening you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? Who are we that you should grumble against us?" He's about to bring the manna and the quail. They've been grumbling for food. Moses said, "You will know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we? You are not grumbling against us, but against the Lord." This is a monumental question of attitude and self-perception on the part of the leader to be able to ask the question, who are we? That you would grumble to us as if we are the ones who would supply your needs. It is the Lord who will supply your needs. Unhealthy leadership is a leadership that believes that the people must depend upon the leader. But healthy leadership is leadership that understands that the people must trust in the Lord, and that the leaders are just there to point people to trust in the Lord. Unhealthy leadership will try to build faith in leadership, but healthy leadership will try to build faith and trust in the Lord. Who are we anyway? That's a question every Christian leader should ask themselves. And if you're not willing to ask yourself that question, you have a real problem. If you're willing to ask yourself that question, but all you come up with is that you're super significant and that God can't almost do it without you, you've got a real problem. The leader is just a conduit to get people from here to there. To get people from not trusting God to trusting God. You're just a conduit. You're just the pipe. You don't even supply the power. You're just there to kind of channel things and direct things and keep pointing things back and keep getting people to seek the Lord. Now, the fourth question changes things entirely. It's not people to leader or leader to people. It's leader to God. And he says, what am I going to do with these people? God, these are your people, not my people. They belong to you. They don't belong to me. And I don't know what to do with them, but you do. And so I'm asking you to tell me what to do with them. You see, an arrogant leader, a narcissistic leader, which I'll put a little video up here on the screen about narcissistic leaders, will think that they have all the answers and that they don't really need to see God's guidance to find out what to do with the people because they learned it in school and they've got 10 years of experience. They've seen it all before. They know exactly what to do. There's no need to pray about it. You just do what comes natural to you as a narcissistic leader. No, instead, the leader is like, God, what do you want me to do? I'm at my wit's end. The wilderness has brought us all to our wit's end, so show me what to do and I'll do it. I don't know what to do. Just like the question, who am I? It's what do you want me to do? Now, the fifth question is, I feel like more like leader to leader. And we need leaders in our life. If we're a Christian leader who's asking us questions and kind of channeling us, pointing us the right way, giving us some accountability. And it's Jethro, his father-in-law, to Moses. And this is in Exodus 18:13 through 14. And here's the setup. The next day, Moses took his seat to serve as judge of the people, and they stood around him from morning until evening. When his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he said, "What is this that you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge while all these people stand around you from morning until evening?" It's actually two questions. He's like, this isn't doing any good. Moses is like, probably, this is all I know. This is how we've done it from the beginning, but it's not working. And if it's not working, what else are you to do? Well, then divide up and split up and delegate. Jethro gives him this wonderful leadership advice that Moses, don't forget that you are insufficient to the need. One of my prayers regularly is for God to provide for all of our needs because our resources are insufficient for our needs. That unless God provides more resources, we will not be able to accomplish the task that he sets before us. In this situation, Moses needs God to provide more leaders, or else he has no one to delegate these things to, capable people. If those capable people don't exist, and they're all numbskulls, then he has no place to delegate. But God has raised up capable leaders right in front of him, and he can now have the eyes to see them and delegate the responsibilities because it's not about him. If we want faith formation, we got to go through the wilderness. And once again, the wilderness will be one of the best things that ever happened to you, but one of the hardest things you can ever go through. And so we are a bit perplexed by the wilderness, but also thankful for it. If God took you straight to the promised land every time you just peeped or grumbled about anything, what would it teach you? It would just teach you that you are the center of everything, that the moment that you are uncomfortable and you grumble, then God starts moving mountains. But instead, God just wants you to trust him. And once you learn to trust him, he will take you by the hand and he will show you in to the promised land, the land of blessing. But the only way to get there is to come to the end of yourself, to come to a deep realization of your profound insufficiency in order to grasp your utter dependency upon God to form and shape in you a faith that will change the world. Thank you for watching. Love and appreciate you. We're back on track for more videos. And if you haven't subscribed, I'd love for you to do it. But if nothing more, I got another video on leadership I'm going to put up here on the screen. I hope you take a minute to watch it. Share it with your leadership friends, people in Christian leadership, elders, preachers, pastors, etc. Feel free to share it. And we'll talk again soon. Take care.